He thought her sudden kindness meant love, but it was just guilt in disguise. Mark and Sarah had been married for 5 years. To everyone who knew them, they were the perfect couple. Mark, a dedicated architect, worked long hours to provide for them, dreaming of the day they could buy their dream house and start a family. Sarah, a freelance graphic designer, seemed supportive, always cheering him on from the sidelines. Their life was a picture of domestic bliss, or so Mark believed. Lately, things had been even better. Sarah, who had grown a bit distant over the past year, was suddenly showering him with affection. She'd pack his lunch with little love notes, surprise him with his favorite dinner, and initiate romantic evenings that reminded him of their honeymoon phase. Mark was ecstatic. He thought the rough patch they'd been going through was finally over. He confided in his best friend David over a beer. "I think we're back, man," he'd said, a wide grin on his face. "She's been so loving lately. It feels like we're falling in love all over again." David had smiled, but Mark didn't notice the flicker of unease in his friend's eyes. The turning point came on a Tuesday afternoon. Mark's big project presentation was unexpectedly postponed, and he found himself leaving the office hours earlier than usual. He decided to surprise Sarah, maybe take her out for an impromptu date night. He picked up a bouquet of her favorite lilies and practically skipped to their front door, his heart full of excitement. He turned the key in the lock, quietly pushing the door open to maintain the element of surprise. But the surprise was all his. The first thing he noticed was an unfamiliar pair of men's shoes by the door. They were expensive, stylish, definitely not his. A cold dread began to creep up his spine. He called out, "Sarah, honey, I'm home early." Silence. Then a muffled shuffling sound from the bedroom. Mark's heart hammered against his ribs. He walked slowly down the hallway, the scent of lilies suddenly cloying and nauseating. The bedroom door was slightly ajar. He pushed it open. The scene that greeted him shattered his world into a million pieces. Sarah was there, her face a mask of panic, hastily pulling on a robe. And standing beside the bed, buttoning up his shirt, was David, his best friend, the man he trusted like a brother. The bouquet of lilies slipped from Mark's hand, scattering white petals across the floor. The silence in the room was deafening, broken only by Mark's ragged breathing. David couldn't meet his eyes, his face pale with shame. Sarah just stood there, clutching her robe, tears welling up in her eyes. Mark, ... "It's not what it looks like," she whispered, the classic hollow words of the guilty. "Not what it looks like?" Mark's voice was barely a whisper, raw with pain. "You're in our bedroom with my best friend. What else could it possibly be?" Looked from Sarah's tear-streaked face to David's averted gaze, and the puzzle pieces clicked into place with horrifying clarity. The sudden affection, the extra attention, the late-night work sessions Sarah claimed to have. It wasn't love. It was guilt. She wasn't trying to reconnect with him. She was trying to soothe her own conscience while she betrayed him. The weight of the betrayal was suffocating. It wasn't just the infidelity. It was the deception from the two people he trusted most in the world. Every kind word, every loving gesture from Sarah over the past few weeks now felt like a poisoned dart. Every shared laugh and supportive conversation with David was now a bitter memory. "How long?" Mark asked, his voice shaking with a rage he didn't know he possessed. Sarah sobbed, unable to speak. It was David who finally answered, his voice low. "A few months. A few months." 4 months they had been laughing in his face. For months, his home had been the stage for their affair. He looked at Sarah, the woman he had promised to love and cherish, and he saw a stranger. He looked at David, the man he called his brother, and he saw a traitor. Without another word, Mark turned and walked out. He left the shattered lilies on the floor, a poignant symbol of his crushed dreams. He walked out of the apartment, out of the life he had so carefully built, and he didn't look back. The pain was immense, a physical ache in his chest, but in that moment of utter devastation, there was also a flicker of clarity. He had been living a lie, blinded by a love that was only a performance. The truth, however brutal, had set him free. The days that followed were a blur of pain and anger. Mark moved into a small, temporary apartment, the sterile white walls a stark contrast to the warm, vibrant home he had shared with Sarah. Sleep offered little respite. As his dreams were haunted by images of her and David, he threw himself into his work, the long hours a welcome distraction from the gnawing emptiness inside him. He ignored Sarah's incessant calls and texts, each one a mix of desperate apologies and flimsy excuses. She claimed it was a mistake, that she was confused, that she still loved him. Her words were as hollow as her recent displays of affection. Love doesn't hide in the shadows. Love doesn't betray. What she felt was regret at being caught, not remorse for her actions. The divorce proceedings were swift and cold. Mark wanted nothing from her, only to sever the ties that bound him to the betrayal. He sold his share of their apartment and cut off all contact. The hardest part was dealing with their mutual friends. News of the affair spread, and people took sides. Some tried to offer comfort, while others awkwardly avoided him. He learned who his true friends were, the ones who stood by him without judgment, who let him grieve without offering empty platitudes. One evening, months later, Mark was sitting in a quiet cafe, sketching in his notebook, when he saw Sarah walk in. She was with David. They didn't see him tucked away in a corner booth. He watched them for a moment. They looked normal. They ordered their coffees, found a table, and started talking. But there was a tension between them, a strained quality to their smiles. Their perfect affair didn't look so perfect from the outside. Mark felt a pang, not of jealousy, but of pity. They had built their relationship on a foundation of deceit, and it was a fragile thing. He realized then that his anger had started to fade, replaced by a quiet resolve. He had been a victim of their choices, but he refused to let their betrayal define his future. He deserved better. He deserved a love that was honest and true, not a performance born of guilt. He closed his sketchbook, paid for his coffee, and walked out of the cafe without a backward glance. The city lights seemed brighter that night, the air fresher. He was starting over, not from scratch, but from experience. He had learned a hard lesson about trust and love, a lesson that had cost him dearly, but it also made him stronger. Years passed, Mark's career flourished. He designed beautiful buildings that reached for the sky, symbols of his own rebuilding. He eventually met someone new, a woman named Emily. Their relationship was different from the start. It was built on a foundation of honesty, open communication, and mutual respect. With Emily, there were no grand, suspicious gestures, just a steady, quiet love that felt real and secure. There was no need for love notes and a lunchbox to cover up a lie. Their affection was in the everyday moments, the shared glances, the easy laughter. One day he received a letter. It was from David. It was a long, rambling apology, filled with regret and self-loathing. He wrote that his relationship with Sarah had crumbled less than a year after Mark left. The guilt and mistrust that had been the bedrock of their affair had eventually corroded everything between them. He was alone now and finally understood the magnitude of what he had destroyed. Mark read the letter, folded it, and put it away. He didn't feel anger or even satisfaction, just felt a sense of closure. He had moved on. He had healed. He had found a love that wasn't a disguise for guilt, but a genuine partnership that enriched his life. He looked across the living room of the beautiful home he had designed and built himself. Emily was there, reading a book, her presence a warm and comforting constant. He smiled. He had been through the fire of betrayal and emerged on the other side, not unscathed, but whole. His past was a scar, a reminder of a painful lesson, but it was no longer an open wound. He had learned that true love doesn't need to shout its presence with grand, sudden gestures. It whispers in the quiet, honest moments of a shared life. And that was a truth he would carry with him, always. Thank you for watching. If you've ever been through something similar, remember that healing is a journey, and you are not alone. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more stories.